In Chicago, standing up and speaking out, here's Hal Sparks.
Welcome to the show, everybody. How are you? Today, Johnny Million is with us, fully and officially, this throughout the entire stream. I'm very excited about this. This is an experiment. We've been slowly but surely improving on our quality and whatnot. Everybody in the chat room, welcome this morning. And obviously, Mueller week was this week, and it was an emotional roller coaster for people who were expecting a man in his 60s, who's a career law enforcement official, to come out and basically give some version of the monologue from Network mixed with the cancer man from the X-Files and Deep Throat from all the President's Men, kind of all wrapped into one. Yeah. And in reality, you got a guy who was doing his best. I think mission for Mueller, like job one, was essentially trying to avoid making any sound bites. I have a theory.
Mission accomplished.
Yes, I have a theory. Well, there's a couple of them. Obviously, Ted Lieu got him to have some direct answers to some direct questions that put them tight together, right? But in general, that's, I often think that Obama at times was, when he was talking about a complex issue, was aware that they were hunting for little pieces of information or word phrasings that would wreck the idea you could take out of context. So he would intentionally drag and stammer. I think I was of the belief that was part of the strategy. Okay, audio is. I'll fix that. So, he would go. That's one of the things that very important to a plan, budget-wise. You drag those things out, and eventually everyone is like, just say it, spit it out. But then you can't cut that up and put it on the news. And that was sort of the the issue with it. So in terms of the and we'll do folks in the chat room. The issue always is in a Senate hearing, especially, that rarely will you get a soundbite worth much if at least from the people that you actually want the sound bites from. You'll get all kinds of sound bites from these kind of sideline ne'er-do-wells.
Devin Nunes.
Yeah, exactly.
There's citing Sean Hannity's
there's
news
plenty. Script. Yeah, there's plenty of those guys. Hopefully, the guys on the panel are doing their best to make sound bites. Meanwhile, the witnesses themselves are desperately hoping not to, right? So in terms of this was no surprise to me in terms, everybody was hedging a lot on this. I happen to think the seeds were planted for a direct impeachment inquiry now. And there was an obvious group of Democrats who were like, look, we need to get these points on the board. We need to get this obstruction stuff on the board. Now, my honest belief is that I feel like they're leaving money on the table in terms of the collusion concept, the conspiracy to engage with a foreign power to subvert the elections, to defraud the American people during the election. I think there is more than enough evidence on those, right? I think
that way.
Yes, and I think the case that's made in it is in some ways equal to or even more overwhelming than the obstruction case. Now, the obstruction case is obvious.
Saying something.
Yes. So here's the primary thing this is what Fox News and the Republicans are pressing now, is that the obstruction part is the witch hunt part, and you can't obstruct when you're legally allowed to fire the FBI director, for example. Then if you're doing that, then you no matter why you do it, it's legal, which is not the case. Period. End of story. It is not the case. That's not how it works. And it's very suspect, specifically, that while Comey was disliked in his handling of the Clinton email issue and all those kind of things, when Trump got in, he was kind of happy. He was aware that how Comey handled that actually benefited him. So he was sort of happy to keep the guy on.
He thought he was on the team.
Yeah, I think he was under the illusion that he was a sycophantic follower and was like, I can get this guy. He's going to be one of my Cohns, my Roy Cohns in this mess. So he is fine with Comey until Comey starts looking into the Russian election interference, and specifically its relation to
doing his job.
Yes, exactly. If he wasn't supposed to do his job, it's like Sessions recusing himself. He's not supposed to do the right thing. If I knew he was going to do the right thing, I never would have hired him. So, right. So when it comes to the obstruction issue, that's their they're like, well, he can fire him for any reason. That is not the case. If his intent was to fire him to scuttle an investigation, not just into himself, but into Russian interference into our elections, that's illegal. You can't do it for that reason. Just because you have
just because it's not illegal to do the action doesn't mean that it's not illegal to do it for the reason he did it.
Well, I would say that we used this analogy before, but a police officer can shoot a human being. They cannot shoot their spouse. Yes, right. They cannot shoot their spouse and go, well, I have the license to kill because they gave me a gun and I have the right to shoot people. Thank you, Hal Vickery, for the super chat. Holy smokes. He won't be here for the next week, so he's paying the penalty for not attending. Oh, Vickery, I appreciate that, man.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, bless you. So every legal officer has an ability or a legal right to do certain acts in terms of hiring, firing people, those kind of things in your business. But there are limits on that are based on what's legal. And it is not legal to fire the FBI director to keep him looking into how the Russians helped you win the election. And that would be illegal. And that's really why Trump never sat down for an interview. He would not do that, because that would have come out. Because he said it in front of Lester Holt, effectively, said the Russian investigation was the reason he wanted to get rid of him. He said it in front of the Russians in the White House. Now I got rid of this nut job and the pressure's taken off about Russia. I mean, while they're laughing in the Oval Office, and then the other reason that they bring up fairly regularly why there shouldn't be, I mean, besides the fact that I guess spying on the campaign is in general not legal, which is not the case at all, because I've said before, I don't know what the tipping point is, but I think there's definitely a tipping point where once you call a drug dealer often enough, that you go from user we don't have to be concerned about to, oh, this guy might also be a drug dealer, right? Mm-hmm. When they've got a drug dealer's phone tapped, the second thing they listen for is like, well, we don't have a warrant to engage with these folks who, a telemarketer who calls a drug dealer is not in trouble. If they call a bunch of times and always use the same language and it's not in their script for, selling timeshares, it gets on the radar is what I'm saying. And the same thing happened with the Trump campaign. These guys had this odd number of connections and correspondence through intermediaries, through quote unquote back channels, that were getting super suspicious as they went on. Now, Christopher Steele, where there, the idea that because it was opposition research and it wasn't noted as opposition research in some sort of FISA warrant or whatever, because like that matters. Because here's the thing, if I'm a private eye and I've been hired to do a divorce case on someone and I stumble upon a dead body, if I tell the cops there's a dead body, you can't go, hey, dude, you were only hired to look into my ex-wife. You weren't supposed to dig up the backyard, right? So we got to throw that out. It's like, no, sorry. While I was planting listening devices, I found a bag of fingers. This is their weirdly anti-law enforcement excuse is pretty spectacular. But we got to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk about the other main reason.
We'll talk about the bag of fingers that Hal found.
I didn't, or the cooler of penises, but that's a whole other discussion. Did you see that?
Cooler, really?
Did you see that? Did you see that story?
You didn't
Oh, no, I did not. I would never. I would not even dream of making something like that. Oh, don't. Yeah, actually do. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide. So the story came out that there was one of these these body companies that like sells, they basically procure like the corpses of indigent people or unclaimed corpses or whatever, and they sell them for medical research, and they found that they weren't, I guess they were having a problem moving product because they were cutting pieces off, but there was a cooler full of penises in the place, and they had over 10 tons of body parts that hadn't been moved, that had just been sitting.
Ooh.
Yeah, dude, it's a gnarly story. I tweeted about it, and I saw it, I was just like, oh, horrifying.
Yeah, that's like a poltergeist situation. You moved the body, but you didn't move the penises.
Right, that's right. You moved the headstones, but you left the cooler full of penises. Ah! Yes.
Did you get the email about the Ravinia library for this?
I did. We'll do that at the mid-break.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I got it too.
Oh, well then you can do it the first one, and I'll do the second one.
Teamwork.
Travel the world in a week without leaving Ravinia.
I'll do it. Never mind.
The concerts by the Lucerne Symphony Orchestra and the Shanghai. Oh wow, that's cool.
Yeah, I know, right? We're like, this is ridiculous. Oh, actually.
Why do they do these in all caps? Is it because they're afraid of throwing the reader off with punctuation?
I don't know. I think it might be
like what to read out loud.
Be like they want emphasis on the whole thing.
Yeah.
I don't want any dynamics. Just scream the damn thing. Right. I have to find the email.
Think about that phonetic spelling of Paulo Zot.
Huh?
It's on the second line, starring Tony Winner. Paulo
Second 30
Zot.
guess.
Jot. Okay. Sorry. Say again. 20 seconds. 30 seconds. What is it?
Oh, 20 now.
Okay. Cool. And the Ravinia premiere of Leonard Bernstein's Trouble in Tahiti, starring Tony Award winner Paulo Zot. Zot.
Yeah. SZOT or ZHOT. You're not helping.
Oh, so you don't go Zot. I guess. It's a tough one for some people. I understand. We're not the only one doing it.
While you're reading it, you just stop and I'll...
Maybe. Okay.
Hey, this is a new one.
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
That's the beautiful dulcet tones of Lady B. She's not with us today, but she's here in spirit. And so, first of all, we'll do the Ravinia stuff, and then we got another great deal that's coming up at Ravinia. We're going to talk about it at the half hour. So, but the other big reason that the Republicans seem to think that the Mueller investigation is a hoax and a witch hunt, and the oranges of it are illegal and suspect.
Forgot about that.
No one ever pressed Mueller on the oranges. Where is he keeping the oranges? He looked like he had scurvy, so maybe they're onto something. But
it doesn't look great.
And well, he's an old man, and he was he's a Vietnam War vet. He's been around for a long time, and he's been through a lot of stuff. So we'll just we give people like that a wide berth to take as much time as they need or whatever.
Say the same thing about me.
Yes, right. It also. It doesn't take, ultimately, like I said, it doesn't mean that his thinking process is suspect at all. It's just he's very cautious in that circumstance too. As much as
cautious.
like I said, it's a defense mechanism. Be boring and take your time and don't give any sound bites. So there's 100 reasons why. If you probably talk to him behind it, it reminds me of that old SNL sketch about Reagan, where they like behind the scenes he was a mastermind. That he would go, well, I don't know. And then they go back behind him. All right, fellas, this is what we need to do. We're going to move on Russia right now, whatever. Plant those false stories and move on this. Well, and then back, well, excuse me, where? I'm not sure where I'm supposed to be. It very well may be that. But the first reason that they seem to be is that there was no reason for looking into this. Was opposition research. And that there was no reason that he could fire Comey for any reason he wants. The president could basically do whatever he wants. The supreme executive is something that the Republicans have been pushing for a very long time, since George W. Bush. Before that, but ultimately that's when they really put it into overdrive. And there's no reason why that would change under Trump. As a matter of fact, because he's so brazen about a lot of these things, I personally think that they're excited about it more than usual. That they're this is their dude, this is their guy. Now he, with the wall and the corporate tax cuts and those kind of things, like they're hoping that he bulldozes on all these things. So they don't care about his behavior outside of anything else. And this week, the other reason that they had was that it's somehow illegal for them to look into it. Besides, it was opposition research, and that he could fire Comey anytime he wants. Was that they had spied on the campaign, that the FISA warrant itself into Papadopoulos and Carter Page were illegal because they were based on the Steele dossier, which they weren't. But the basis of that is that the initial warrant was illegal. Therefore, this is all the evidence they gathered, all the stuff that Mueller gathered, all the stuff that they have that will get pushed given to the Congress if it's ever allowed. All of that stuff is fruit of the poison tree and should be thrown out. That's their theory. And it is amazing, I think, to anybody who's been paying attention to politics since, I don't know, we've been alive, that now the Republicans are the party of, you don't have a warrant to look in my trunk.
Right.
Of all, considering how it's supposed to be Democrats that are the cop haters, and Democrats...
Right, and this is the stop and frisk party.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And all of a sudden, this is the linchpin of their legal defense for Trump, is you have no right...
There's evidence against us, but you got it the wrong way.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And, I guess, it's no surprise that, one of his biggest defenders, Alan Dershowitz, who's, amazingly entrenched in the Epstein story in the most grotesque way. I think if we can agree on anything, like the big kumbaya moment over the last couple of weeks is that Dershowitz is a scumbag. I think in general, we can all kind of just settle on that idea. But this idea that they are the party now of that was an improper warrant, therefore. And on something this scale, this is not drugs planted in your pocket during a search, or they didn't have a right to look in your glove box because something can be slipped in your glove box. And because all the stuff that's found here is not manipulated financial files. They didn't put money in an account for Trump and then take it out through an untoward source and then magically find the details of that transaction, right? The absurdity. So those are those kind of the main linchpins. And
All stuff that really happened. They're just trying to find loopholes in the way it was.
so nobody can look at it. Right, exactly. Like, there's a ton of crimes there, but they don't matter because the guy won. And now that he won, that's that. And that's kind of, for me anyways, that's the scary part is that, and I think a lot of people are concerned about that, is that once you somehow win the office, your crime, especially, ones that helped you get in the office are now void. Legally, you're in the clear, which is madness. I mean, that in and of itself is crazy. But the thing that came up with the Mueller investigation this week, that his testimony specifically, there were 2 points that really stood out to me. One was his obvious saying that, the Russians are at it right as we sit here. When he said specifically that the Russians, they specifically are engaged. Not only did they engage in the 2016 election and going further back, and we found out that the Senate's election interference report that they've been putting together came out last week as well, and a lot of this fell as like smokescreen over the top of it. There were a bunch of stories that got buried by the news cycle being around Mueller that are incredibly damning in terms of Russian interference into our elections, that just kind of got swamped by this, and including the Senate intelligence report, which I'm going to talk about a little bit today. But besides him saying they're at it right now, what he brought up was that the reason why Trump's, and he couldn't directly address it, you could tell, because he was saying basically these are ongoing investigations by the FBI and counterintelligence investigations that are not under my purview, so I can't speak to them. But he's basically giving a wink and a nod, saying that the reason why we can't go after this, God, it's hard even to shape it so that it makes sense, because it's so absurd. So Trump is essentially saying anything I did before I got in office is now off limits because I won the presidency. The problem that Mueller and the FBI and the CIA had was that the crimes are ongoing. That it wasn't like they ended on election day. That like, oh, we're in. The payback part of the crime is still ongoing. That the payoff for committing to this illegal act will be either future financial gain or current financial gain in one of two ways. One, direct financial gain, meaning that the Trump Tower Moscow will be built after you get out of office. P.S. Watch for that. And or secondly, relief from the financial cost of direct blackmail. That's the thing of value in this circumstance, and that was the argument in terms of what was the thing of there has to be a thing of value for it to be campaign finance violation. Well, free oppo research on your opponent or election interference against your opponent by the way, hacking your emails and your opponents and only releasing your opponents, that's obviously a thing of value.
I don't know why that doesn't come up more.
Yeah, well, specifically the hacking of the RNC is a tale yet to be told, because that would explain a bunch of people's behavior in this. Paul Ryan stepping down, the way Lindsey Graham has been behaving, part of what Mitch McConnell is doing, although from the Moscow Mitch stuff that came up in the last week, and his relation to Oleg Deripaska, who was directly named in the Mueller investigation, building an aluminum plant in eastern Kentucky, which, by the way, serves two purposes. Gives you a financial win putting in a plant in your state, so you could pat yourself on the back, and nearly kills everyone downstream, because aluminum plants are some of the most poisonous things you can put in your district. So win-win, because you can get rid of the poorest members of your states by giving them terminal diseases. So there's no downside for Mitch McConnell in this regard. But that's a financial benefit he gets. We got to take a break. When we come back, not only does he get this financial benefit, but he also gets, there's a very strong chance his emails were among those hacked. And he gets the benefit of blackmail material not coming out. We'll be back. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk, with Johnny Million, at JMillion on Twitter, at Hal Sparks on Twitter. We'll be back right after this. Join us in the chat room at infotainmentwars.com. And how two white men, one I know, the other one, a complete stranger, told me that they were scared because of what Trump has been doing to immigrants just being in office. Well, yeah. It shouldn't be surprising that there are white people who actually care about their fellow man. I don't know why that would be surprising. This is what happens when people read too much Raw Story. So I found out today my Weight Watchers meeting that I lost 3 pounds. Well, congratulations, Carrie. Or it depends on from where, I suppose. I lost 3 pounds. They removed a bone from my arm.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Let's see. You get what you give. What Trump has given us is really helping our country. Nothing. Oh, what has Trump given us that is really helping our country? Well, that's the other thing too. The growth changed. The numbers on the where is it? See, I already have this election officials. Yeah, there it is. This is the Georgia election officials destroying evidence of tampering is the scariest story. And coupled with what Mitch McConnell did, and it came out the same week. This is one of the most frightening parts of it. No, it's genuine weight loss, which is a good sign for my mental state. Well, right on. What was the GOP giving us in the past 40 years? Zip. Sadly, their base never thinks of that. That's true. I can hear Johnny clicking. That's the good thing. Yeah. Are you in the chat room, Johnny Million?
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Oh, excellent. Okay, cool. So when you type something in, I'll pop it up and put it on the screen or something. I'll vet it first. I'm not insane, So that's you have to be very careful what you put on the screen from Johnny Million. I'm just saying.
I've already put it out there.
Yikes. Oh, there it is. See, this is what I say. What I say.
Yep.
What did I say?
Do it.
There. No, I already did it. That's what cooler of penises. Yeah, this story is on Voice of America News. It was carried on, obviously, the
60 seconds, guys.
Thank you. The local Georgia papers as well. It went nationwide on a couple of stories, but this coupled with the fact that McConnell scuttled the election interference bills this week is the most frightening aspect of this. And then paired with the Senate report on election interference, this is the central story of the next election. And it is, for me, the most dangerous aspect of this whole thing.
Oh, yeah. Because people are... Wait, are we on the air?
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
We'll hold off on it till then. And we got to do the Ravinia read when we come back, so...
Okay. I'll let you do it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. We don't need you...
Chime in and say how cool.
Lord.
This is Doris Davenport, host of The Doris Davenport Show, all local, all the time. I'm on every Saturday morning from 10 to 11, right before Hal Sparks. Now let's get back to Hal Sparks' radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. Infotainmentwars.com if you want to watch the stream on YouTube. Of course, WCPT820.com is the website if you want to listen to not only my show, but Doris's show and Dick K's show and all your favorite progressive talkers throughout the week if you're traveling outside the limits of the range of old school towers and whatnot. So I recommend that very highly. We've been talking about Ravinia over the last couple of weeks because they have, and every time we do one of these live reads to promote what they're doing, I get jealous that I'm not in Chicago.
Sorry, not sorry.
This one's the same one. Travel the world in a week without leaving Ravinia with concerts by the Lucerne Symphony Orchestra and the Shanghai Symphony, and the Ravinia premiere of Leonard Bernstein's Trouble in Tahiti, starring Tony Award winner Paulo Zot and Grammy winner Patricia Racette. I think they should have given us a phonetic spelling of Patricia's last name. Tickets at ravinia.org. Of all that, because Paulo Zot, how do you not say that exactly right? How do you not know Paulo Zot? But Grammy winner Patricia Racette. Tickets at ravinia.org. Check out their website anyways. There's lots of programs coming up, some of which we've talked about over the last few weeks that are ongoing.
The movies with the live orchestra.
That's my favorite thing. So we will we'll obviously be talking more about those over the next couple of weeks, I have no doubt. But and thanks Ravinia for supporting Progressive Talk. Now, so there was a little bit of noise made this week during the whole Mueller exchange. But this ate a lot of the news cycle, and the Mitch McConnell story of him blocking bills specifically protecting our elections, the 2020 election, mainly two bills going that if anyone received offers of foreign assistance, they had to report it, but it's one of those laws that should have been a law situations, that one of those things where you're shocked it's not a law, right? And then the other one was a protection, making sure that that states had some sort of way of creating a receipt system or a paper version of what was going on for recounts and to make sure that they matched up. Really simple stuff. Obviously stuff, by the way, that were there a Democratic majority in the Senate and a Democratic president would zip right through. And the next time
majorities that promote democracy.
Right, exactly. Well, yes, the pre-Trump Republicans, or I guess pre-George W. Bush Republicans, perhaps, might have been interested in this. The only way this is going to happen is a Democratic majority. Understand this, because if there's even a chance, they will try to block these, but they'll try to block regular order. And there'll be a way that you actually have to force them to block it long term with everything else. They can't just scuttle the bill in committee on single objection. And again, I'm not for eliminating the filibuster because I think it's a necessary tool at times, but I think it just has to be a legit filibuster. You have to stand there and talk until recess. If that's 2 months away, so be it. And you have to, and you must address the content of the bill the entirety of your talk. I think lining up the filibuster around those rules would clarify it, make it more honest, and also point to its value when it is necessary, right?
Yep.
So I'm not anti-filibuster in that. As a matter of fact, I'm just a filibuster purist, if that makes sense.
Have an anti-filibuster, though.
Yeah, she was lovely, but she passed away.
Yeah.
While all this, Mitch McConnell story is going on about him specifically blocking stuff around the 2020 election coming up, this story came out. Georgia election officials repeated and intentionally destroyed evidence that could show unauthorized access to the state election infrastructure and potential manipulation of election results, according to a federal court filing. Remember, we've been told all this time, no votes were changed. It was all, the Russian interference was just social media manipulation, man. It was all Twitter and Facebook. It wasn't in the election systems. Now, they've hit our electrical grid. They've attacked our, computer systems. They've hit the FAA, but somehow they left state election systems alone. Right. But not only was there evidence that they did, and that they very possibly manipulated, I would argue, according to this, that they did actually manipulate election results by, here, I'll continue. The evidence strongly suggests that the state's amateurish protection of critical election infrastructure placed Georgia's election system at risk, and the state defendants now appear to be desperate to cover up the effects of their misfeasance. And by the way, I would argue malfeasance, not misfeasance. Misfeasance gives them too much credit. Malfeasance means they did it on purpose. Misfeasance means it's sort of the depraved indifference versus manslaughter idea. To the point of destroying evidence, the filing said. A spokeswoman for the Secretary of State's office, which oversees the election, denied the allegations. Surprise, surprise. Especially since they were put in place by the governor who won in a really screwy election. The brief was filed Thursday as U.S. District Judge Amy Totenberg was holding a hearing on request by the plaintiffs that she ordered the state to immediately stop using its current voting machines and switch to hand-marked paper ballots. That hearing is set to continue Friday. In court Thursday, lawyers for the plaintiffs highlighted weaknesses identified in risk assessment reports by Fortalease Solutions, a cybersecurity firm hired by the Secretary of State's office. Fortalease CEO Teresa Payton testified that her team did find serious risks in their initial 2017 assessment, but also said the Secretary of State's office had made progress towards fixing the problems by the time of a subsequent review last November. The plaintiff's lawyers pointed out, however, that the assessment only covered general cybersecurity in the office and that Fortalease wasn't asked to look at potential risks for election management systems or voting machines. So, yeah, dude, there are locks on all of our offices, and we all password. We all need. We use facial recognition to get on our iPhones. So don't worry about the elections. Don't check the machines, though, and don't check the tally machines or the storage machines for the results of the election. Georgia's voting system drew national scrutiny last year during the closely watched governor's race in which Brian Kemp, a Republican who was the state's top election official at the time, narrowly defeated Stacey Abrams. A law passed this year and signed by Kemp provides specifications for a new system, which state officials said will be in place by the 2020 presidential election. But the state still plans to use the current machines for special and municipal elections this year, and the plaintiffs fear the outdated machines will also be used in 2020 if a new system isn't implemented on time. So it will make the governor go, well, we totally did everything we could, but we couldn't afford all these new systems or they weren't online fast enough. So to make sure everybody can vote, what we're going to do is we'll send all the busted old systems we know can be hacked to the black neighborhoods.
Oh.
Count on it. Count on it. Where is it? And that putting on intermittent hand mark. Let's see. The lawyers for the state have argued in court filings that the new security measures have been put in place to protect the existing system. That the implementation of a new voting system addresses the judge's concerns, and that putting an intermediate hand marked paper ballot system in place while the state is moving to a new voting system would be, quote, an impossible burden on state and local election officials. Why? Because of budget? Well, why would that be a budgetary issue? Since the federal government provides election funds just for these type of circumstances. Well, because
that impossible label.
Because the Senate is who is responsible for getting that money in there is patting themselves on the back for the amount of money that they provided for election security, during the last budgetary cycle. They've talked up and down like we don't need. Mitch McConnell even came out going, well, there's no need for any kind of a dish. We already in the budget put $128 million in the budget for cybersecurity for elections, which is the same amount they always put in. Like, you don't get extra credit for the minimum, and you don't get to put the minimum in, and then when in the face of an extraordinary front, you don't get to sandbag a tornado. You can't go, well, we put up a barrier to stop it. It's not. It's insufficient, and you know it's insufficient, and you're doing it on purpose. It's like sanding down the safeties on all the handguns assigned to police officers in bad neighborhoods. That's effect, like, there's safeties on the guns. Why we paid to put safeties on? We paid a guy to actually file them down, so they're loose. So, in their brief Thursday, lawyers for the Coalition of Good Governance accused state officials of destroying computer servers from the Center for Election Systems at Kennesaw State University after a security hole there that exposed Georgia voters' personal data and passwords used by county election officials was discovered. Not suspected, discovered. They discovered it had been hacked into. They discovered that their passwords had been taken and used. They discovered that Georgia voters' voting information, where they live, their district, their voting history and records, their driver's license number, any other secondary information widget, had not only been discovered, but the actual machines that had the evidence of the hack were destroyed. This is going to 2020. The next story, the next shoe to drop in these, if these guys file their same lawsuits, watch for Florida, the Carolinas, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. All this stuff, these are going to keep coming up, and every single one of them, and we're going to talk about, I got to take a break, but the Senate report on why they didn't talk about this stuff is ridiculous. But at the same time, it's technically true. I'll explain that when we come back. Yeah. It's really painful doing that. Like, I have to jam my jaw back into my eardrums. It hurts. It
looks uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's painful. It really is. The other issue, according to the Republicans, want people to, want to fail voting so that they can say the votes aren't valid. Yeah. Yes, can't stop lying. Absolutely right. There you go. Thank you. There you go. Jumping on this. We got over 200 people watching in the chat room right now. Welcome, one and all. Thank you guys for joining us. We really appreciate it. It's good. It's nice to have Johnny Million in here as well, both in the chat and watching. So please give us a thumbs up, like and subscribe to the channel, all that kind of stuff. Consider, if you would, becoming a Patreon subscriber, patreon.com/HalSparks. Support independent media that way and help us in our ever-growing approach to try and improve our both our production and eventually get a studio for the show and all kinds of that cool stuff. But we, yeah, here we go. I'll just post this right up on, da-da-da, that's what's going on. There's all sorts of, free perks, not the least of which are at the $5 and $10 level, you automatically get a free comedy show every month because I'm posting my shows from Flappers. It's all new stuff. Next one's August 11th. I'm still waiting for the file from the last one. They're going to send it to me so I can post it up for you guys.
Flappers.
Yep, Flappers. Chuck in our chat room says, the Senate report also said that no machines were hacked and no votes changed. The report said we are vulnerable to election manipulation. And they said that and had to have known that that's not technically true. But their fear was, and according to the report, that all the Russians have to do... Okay. All the Russians have to do is go into an election machine and change 2 votes. Just flip 2 votes. And then nobody trusts our voting machines anymore. Yeah. They don't have to do a whole switch. They just have to undermine faith in our democracy. Yes, those
accomplished already.
well, that's exactly it right now. And, until we have paper ballots or some kind of backup. Yeah.
This is Ron Calgo.
And this is Robbie Earhart.
And you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
That's
Darn
a lot
tootin'.
to say. Why doesn't he just say the Hal Sparks Show?
I mean, that's much simpler, isn't it?
I know. We're a Mighty House radio show. That's easy.
Yeah, well, simple is always easy, but we deal with complexities here, and broadness and openness and a lot of, and metallurgical, probably were raised in a barn. Anybody? Evil Dead, Army of Darkness? No, okay. All right, so yeah, that was a reach, but it was fun. Okay, so the Senate report on this was the title of it officially, Report of the Select Committee on Intelligence, United States Senate on Russian active measure campaigns and interference in the 2016 U.S. election, Volume 1. Russian efforts against the election infrastructure with additional views. Bunches of this are redacted. But it should come as no surprise to anyone in the Republican-controlled Senate that in the course of doing this report, the table of contents selectively puts parts of it in all caps. And then what isn't redacted? There's some redacted stuff. One of the things that they say is on page 38. Section 6 is no evidence of changed votes or manipulated vote tallies in all caps, in between Russian intentions and security of voting machines. That we now know, less than a week later, is not true. And by the way, I'm gonna show everybody in the chat room. How much of this is how much of it is redacted. There's like huge chunks of this that are redacted, and rightly so. Some of it's ongoing investigations. I don't need to, understand this, especially when you're dealing with security of any sort. If you can see it, everyone else can see it. Just know that. Right. If you get to hear that piece of information, everyone gets to hear it. North Korea gets to hear it. Iran gets to hear it. The mob gets to hear it. I mean, like, the drug cartels get to hear it. I'm not quite sure why people don't seem to get that. Like, I don't have an overall problem with certain redactions, and I think the Freedom of Information Act is a great remedy, and I, obviously this White House and others have used it in a way to kind of hold back what would be normal information, and it's always a struggle, but the general idea of secrecy isn't somehow... I just find people's being against it is fantastical most of the time. But there are they have a like a standard of where to go? Oh crap! I quit out of that page already. Dang it! They have a. I'll find it. They have a table of what were elements that had occurred that they had evidence of during the last, election, during the 2016 election. And this goes back, by the way, to 2014. Literally the first state that they have under observed activity is Illinois. And it's in report volume 1. Illinois was the first state mentioned. See infra, Russian access to election-related infrastructure. They hacked into the Illinois election systems. Period. End of story. The idea that they did it, there are only a couple of reasons why they did it. One is to see if they could, to get ready for next time, to achieve, because once you get in by phishing someone's password or whatnot, unless someone comes in and does a complete revamp of your cybersecurity, which most of the blue states are doing and none of the red states give a crap about, basically you can punch a hole in the security and have a backdoor, type in your own Joshua, as it were. The interesting thing is, while Illinois is related in there specifically, it is the only state named. In the rest of the chart, it just says State 2, State 3, State 4, State 5, and State 6.
What is that? So special.
Yeah. State 3 says According to State 3 officials, cyber actors using infrastructure identified in the August flash conducted scanning activity. State 3 officials noticed, quote, abnormal behavior and took action to block the related IP addresses. DHS reported GRU scanning attempts against 2 separate domains related to election infrastructure in State 3. State 5 said cyber actors using infrastructure identified in the August flash scanned, quote, an old website and non-relevant archives, according to the State 5 Secretary of State's office. Boy, does that sound like CYA. The following day, State 5 took action to block the IP address. Oh, the following day. Oh, so 24 hours. So downloading a text file with every voter in the entire country's information takes all of, what, 8 minutes? Tops, maybe 60 seconds, depending on the connection you have. But they blocked it 24 hours later, they blocked it. So we should all feel a lot better. According to State 6 officials, cyber actors using infrastructure identified in the August flash scanned the entire state IT infrastructure. Not just elections, by the way. The entire state IT infrastructure. Energy, security, your traffic lights. Like, oh my God, right? And what state is that? We don't know. Identified in the flash the entire state IT infrastructure, including by using the Acunetics tool, but the affected systems were the Secretary of State's. So they scanned everything, but they got into the Secretary of State's computer system. Now, the Secretary of State also signs your driver's license. Just saying. So, but why put extra security on these things? Just because with your driver's license number and your social security number, which is attached to it in the Secretary of State's database, there goes your credit and your mortgage. Yeah. I mean, there is value for the Russians or the North Koreans or the Chinese or anybody in crashing our economy simply by causing an artificial 2008 crash. Because all you have to do is change everyone's credit score in an evening. Because
it's
even
a robot. Yeah,
even the faking of it. And it continues. State 7, cyber actors using infrastructure identified in the August flash scanned public-facing machines, including the static election site. It seemed the actors were, quote, cataloging holes to come back later, according to state election figures. Yeah. Has anyone watched War Games? Have we? I mean, do we have to send them a VHS of it?
I was never a fan of Matthew Broderick after that Torch Song trilogy nonsense.
So State 8...
I liked him in all those teen dramas, but not after that.
So according to state election officials in State 8, using infrastructure identified in the August flash scanned the public election website on one day, and they described activity as heightened but not particularly out of the ordinary. So they always get scanned in State 8. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Infotainmentwars.com is our website. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It helps us out. We're trying to reach 10K. Help independent media by becoming a Patreon supporter. Patreon.com/Hal Sparks. We'll be back right after this. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Catchy, I know. Mm-hmm. Boy.
By the way, I can confirm that info.
I'm Ann Cates. Demonstrations continue today in Hong Kong. Correspondent Anna Cora.
Hold on, I gotta mute Devin coming our way because he Thanks, man. Thank you, Devin.
No problem. Sorry about that. That was on me.
That's okay. I got blasted. And music coming this way is a tad hot, just a touch, but that's okay. It's not something big. Thank you. Yeah, so we've got how many states in this. They did an entire rundown of all the states affected. Yeah, in June 2016, Illinois experienced the first known breach by Russian actors of state election infrastructure during the 2016 election. As of the end of 2018, the Russian cyber actors had successfully penetrated Illinois' voter registration database, viewed multiple database tables, and accessed up to 200,000 voter registration records. The compromise resulted in the exfiltration of an unknown quantity of voter registration data. Russian cyber actors were in a position to delete or change voter data, but the committee is not aware of any evidence they did so. You know why? Because their digital records, they have no paper records, so they can't compare them to see if something was changed. How do you know someone's address was changed if they can change the address and wipe the record of the change? Once you're in the IT system, you can do that. Like, this is the problem with having people who are not, I mean, computer savvy past 1982.
They got their Commodore 64.
Yeah. Yeah, let's see. So, State Board of Elections Illinois voter registration system records breach August 31st, 2016 is reflected elsewhere in the report. The committee did not undertake its own forensic analysis of the Illinois server logs to corroborate the statement. SSCI interview with DHS and CTIIC. So, how odd. They took the Department of Homeland Security's word for it that they had evidence, because that's their job. They should be doing that. Obviously, this is maddening. This is, this is, and Carl's bringing up a really good point. Trump was pushed over the top by selective 1% wins in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania. I'm pretty confident votes were flipped in those states. I don't know it, but I suspect it. I think there was a bunch of those areas where they talk about in this report how votes were not only could be flipped, but deleted. And there were a lot of situations where people didn't vote for president. And they were like, well, people must have just hated Hillary that much. And they just didn't vote for her in those weird little districts. Yeah. And that was actually, in Michigan, that was the predominant figure, was that it went Trump's way because of the number of votes that would have gone to Hillary, where people supposedly they voted Democratic down the line, but they didn't vote for president. They left it blank. People. If they did, that's the thing. Yeah. You can hate on those people for not voting if that's in fact what they did. Right. I mean, it's screwy. And there's so much of this. Like, this is, and like I said, these are the parts that aren't redacted. And there are tons of redacted parts of this. The FBI does all these flash reports like, hey, check this out, on certain days. They're like, uh-oh, we're getting, lights are flashing red everywhere. Yeah.
That's not terrifying.
Yeah, August 18, 2016, FBI flash notification identified IP addresses targeting election offices. August 24th, Department of State received the flash from National Association of Secretaries of State. August 26th, Department of State forwarded flash to counties and advised them to block certain IP addresses. Blank, this is redacted. Separately, blank determined one of the listed IP addresses scanned its system. Blank subsequently discovered suspected intrusion activity and contacted the FBI. P.S. Thank you. P.S. We hate the FBI for the, right. Donna says, I'm blurry. I'm sorry I'm blurry. I don't have the best internet where I am today. Next week will be, I'm in Cleveland. Yes, my semi-niece, she's technically my second cousin, but it's like a niece because my My cousin's like my brother. You know, he's like my brother.
Smanise.
Yeah, Smanise. Yeah, by the way, if you want to check out, thanks for putting this up there, Can't Stop Lying. I have an Amazon store, amazon.com/shop/HalSparks, that you can filter through and see all the stuff I use for both Project 50 and for the gear we've been using to improve our system as we move forward. Here we come. We're going back.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Fuss-faced little pimpstick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Okay, so folks, I don't suspect that anybody who has, since people have not read the Mueller report, the idea that they're going to read the Senate report into Russian election interference is even a slimmer run, and it offers almost as many redacted portions as the initial Mueller report did, if not more. And there are bone-chilling parts of this. Parts of it where it is quite clear that their inability to measure the effect of breaches and hacks that went into their system have raised the red flags across this country repeatedly, and to the point where they know the Russians got into the system. They know the Chinese and the Israelis and the North Koreans have gotten into some systems. They've shut down IP addresses, but in the case of, certain states, they intentionally, it looks like, dragged their feet about it, either to just cover their own butts and not look like they were behind it. Thank you, Billy, for the super chat. Greatly appreciate that. That's awesome.
McConnell is a clear and present danger to voting.
Yeah, if you read this report, and this is, by the way, from the Republican-run Senate, so there's all kinds of language in this that says, well, we don't know that anything was changed. No votes were changed. So how do you know? Well, we don't actually. As a matter of fact, there is no reason, even a cursory glance at this report lets you know that there is no reason to believe in the slightest that votes weren't changed. The way anybody who reads this and who has seen the underlying evidence surely could say openly and under oath that votes weren't changed is impossible. Because first of all, there's no way they can know for sure that they weren't. They can't exclude the possibility. And there's so much evidence to the contrary that they actually were, especially that report about the Georgia election systems and the fact that they saw evidence of the breach, they saw evidence of votes being changed, and then the servers that had that information on it were destroyed. So while the Republicans are freaking out about BleachBit hard drives being wiped by Hillary Clinton when she was done being Secretary of State, and mobile devices being destroyed, which, by the way, you're supposed to do. If you have private mobile devices, you're supposed to destroy them physically after you leave the Secretary of State's office or system. You don't get to keep those things. No, we'll just erase them. Because an erased hard drive can never be recovered. No, you have to physically destroy them. So in terms of, while they're going after her as Secretary of State, the Secretaries of State, specifically of Republican states, are not only looking the other way as this stuff happens, but openly poo-pooing it when they legally have knowledge of genuine breaches that affected the voters and clearly voted the tally. Okay, so state number 2, they don't even say which one. State 2's Secretary of State and Election Director told the committee in December 2017 that there was, quote, never an attack on our systems. We did not see any unusual activities. I would have known about it personally. State 2 did not want to share with the committee its cybersecurity posture, but state officials communicated that they are highly confident in the security of their systems. Right. When they know full well, by the way, from the evidence that they got from DHS, that their systems were breached. And if state 2 is Kentucky or Kansas, it's not going to alter much. It may affect this. It may protect McConnell's seat more than anything else. It certainly would put Bevins in his seat as well. Through manipulation. That has more value for them long term. Nobody's going to suspect anything if, clearly Kentucky is going to go for Trump again. But there's a couple of people that might come up and unseat Rand Paul or Mitch McConnell in the next election cycle. And and this will put their seats in danger. So one of the big things that the committee, and by the way, there's this one section that's redacted hugely. Like I'll show it on screen if you watch this on infotainmentwars.com, and you can see it's all redacted except for one sentence of the third paragraph. It just says it's redacted all the way up to is unknown if Tarantsov attended the events. Just an odd Russian name out of the blue. Yeah. Do we know? Can you Google Tarantsov for me? It's like tarantula with an SOV. He sounds like a Bond villain, honestly. For God's sake. And so I want to go to the chat room because some of this, some of these folks are throwing in some stuff. Like Kelly in our chat room says, it's happening in Florida. We're over 55% Dem, but 20 years of fully GOP control in both houses and governor. It's hard to stop the shenanigans. Agreed. There's some, especially the purple states. If you look at Beto's run against Ted Cruz and how he, it's he almost made it. He was immensely popular, gaining ground the entire time, winning in a bunch of crucial areas, and then all of a sudden just not, And this is, folks, I don't think I have to tell most of the people who watch this show, but anybody who cascades behind this, I need the vote blue no matter who has never been more important than it is right now. Because, honest to God, if they can get this between the margin of error, we're in trouble. Because that's where the shenanigans works. If Biden is ahead by 10 points, it's in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan, which there's a strong evidence he will be. Or whomever, but yeah, in him, and the effect is to chip away at that and basically dent or damage whoever the Democratic frontrunner is from within, and watch out for Russian shenanigans in the on social media and whatnot. Be on heavy bot watch, folks, for people who are trying to divide and conquer from within. If they can get it within that margin of error, that's when they can steal it. That was the lesson learned from Bush v. Gore. That if Al Gore had allowed Clinton to campaign for him, and they had played on the fact that they had left office with a surplus, that these were solid times, and this is a continuation of what we're doing, and he didn't feel like he had to distance himself because of a consensual affair between adults. There's a very strong case that he would have had a margin too big to steal. And that's a huge factor. And Sixes in our chat says Gore should have never conceded. I would argue that is the case. The important thing, though, is that once whoever becomes the front runner on the Democratic side, the primary goal has to be getting Donald Trump out of office. And here's the thing. I'm in Cleveland right now. I'm traveling. I'm going to Atlantic City next week to do stand-up. I'm in places that are not traditionally Democratic territories. And the way they talk about Biden as the front runner currently versus anybody else in the Democratic field, but also versus Trump, that they're looking at Biden, at least in the conversations that I've had, and this is all anecdotal, but it's consistent enough that I find it interesting, that they're looking at him as sort of a reprieve from the insanity. Right. That they don't think he's going to bulldoze the world, with some sort of inverted agenda, that it's going to be this ping pong match of right versus left. That with Biden, they can kind of settle in. They know he's going to come in with a progressive idea. They know he's going to push single payer. They know he's going to be for climate change legislation. They know he's going to be for things like the Iran deal and stuff like that. That does not bother them because it seems like they can go back to not having to worry about politics all the time. That seems to be the feeling that they have. Hal Vickery in our chat says about Gore. Gore was being a good sport. You can't be a good sport when you deal with the GOP. They're willing to do anything to gain and maintain power. There's absolutely that argument. I agree. It's an interesting. It's interesting to see psychologically how they view him. In what we're supposed to be the most partisan time in American history, and there is there's a value to this. So to everybody, like basically lining up against Trump, like that has to matter, because without it, the rest of the offices tear off of that. We got to take a break. I ran over the break, but your Senate, your House seat, everything else dovetails off of that, and it's super important. We'll be back right after this. This is the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Follow me on Twitter at Hal Sparks, and follow Johnny Million at JMillion on Twitter. We'll be back right after this, and of course WCPT 820 on Twitter. Yeah, Carrie, I think you're way off base on the mass deportation stuff and that they're being lionized or whatever.
Are those music levels better or worse, Hal?
Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you. It was perfect.
All right. Perfect. Make sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Also, we have 2 callers. I don't know if you want to get to callers or not.
Yeah, great. Who do we have?
We got Brett in Rockford and Mike on the north side.
Okay, cool.
Rockford.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This is Jim Rockford. At the tone, leave your name and message, and I'll get back to you. I love Rockford just for that reason. I loved, how on The Simpsons, he's always writing something different on the board?
Yeah.
The Rockford Files started that. He had a different answering machine message every week. So if you listen to it, it's a different, you'd hear this, he'd say that, this is Jim Rockford. At the tone, leave your name and message, and I'll get back to you. And it would beep, and then there would be a different message, and then almost like a rim shot, the theme would start. So my favorite, my favorite one was, I don't remember the accountant's name, but he goes like, Jim, it's your accountant, Jerry. You were right. Your government tax refund bounced. Like, your refund check bounced. And then it goes, ba-na-da-da-da. Like, it's great. Yeah. Yeah, Carrie, that's not surprising. The 3 million that they deported, there were over 80,000 people coming here a day, and they weren't asylum seekers. They were economic migrants, which is not a valid reason to go into any other country without doing it legally. That number, that 3 million number, was not extraordinary, and the interior deportations were consistent. There were a bunch of them, but they were they were like the foam on the beer as far as volume goes. The normal deportation act of people coming to the border, being turned away, that's effectively a deportation. And it's wholly different from how Trump handled it.
This is Tom Hartman, and you're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT.
So we got a couple of callers on the line, and in a desperate attempt to always test our audio, I want to push. Yeah, why not try and push it? So who do we have first there, Devin? Who's there?
First, we're going to Brett and Rockford.
Cool. Hey, Brett. Welcome.
Hi.
Oh, feedback a little bit, but you're okay. Yeah, go ahead. He can't hear me?
He may not be able to hear me.
He may not. Yeah.
Can you hear him?
Nope. I don't think he can hear me.
Hal?
Yep. No, he can't. All right. Well, we'll fix that and we'll call you back. Call back, Brett. Thanks. Because I'm hearing a loop of myself a little bit, which is fun. But, yeah.
Gets better every time
Were you
around.
able to hear Hal at all or no?
Nope. I can hear you, Devin. That's the good part. Okay, good. He was able to at the end. Excellent. All right. Well, let's bring him back on if we can. That'd be great. There you are. Hey, Brett. Yeah, Brett, can you hear me?
Am I on the air?
Yes, you are.
I can tell from the phone here.
Yes, you are.
And
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I can hear me on YouTube. Okay, good.
Yeah.
I can't hear you, Hal, but I can hear myself through the YouTube feed here. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, I heard your Jim Rockford
reference.
comment. Yeah.
Excellent.
Unfortunately, the Rockford Files isn't available anywhere online.
Yeah, it's sad. I think Hulu carried it or something for a little while, but I love that show. I'm a big James Garner fan, but there you go. He and I have the same doctor.
I also have, I have kind of a cryptozoological sighting here. I was in DeKalb yesterday, and I was sitting in the car in front of the Aldi, and I see this head with glasses kind of go by.
Mm-hmm.
And I look and think it's somebody familiar, and I kind of look up and I'm like, kind of looks like Johnny.
Yeah, I forgot to tell you. I was attacked by a crazed man outside of Aldi.
I realized, oh, wait a minute, Johnny lives nearby. That's probably actually Johnny. I'm just not used to famous people being around town.
Aww.
Isn't that adorable?
It is. You are Johnny Million. You are Johnny Million. That's great.
Yeah.
Well, we are part of the community. That's true.
Well, we are part of the community. That's true.
There you go. There's the YouTube feed. At least we know the YouTube feed's bulletproof at all times. Yeah. So, anyways, do you want to tip off besides your Johnny Million sighting, which I think entitles you to a special a thing of rice-a-roni and tickets to Great America or something. Ravinia. We should have a Ravinia. Johnny should just walk around handing out Ravinia tickets. That'll be the thing. You've spotted Johnny Million. Congratulations.
Okay, so the thing I was going to point out, people keep misquoting high crimes and misdemeanors.
Mm-hmm.
They don't cite the whole thing. It's like one of those things like, when they say a few bad apples, that's not the saying.
Right.
A few bad apples kill the bunch. Or, kill all the lawyers. No, it's if you want chaos, kill all the lawyers. That's the correct quote.
Right.
But yeah, most people throw high crimes and misdemeanors. There's two things before that, too, and that's treason and bribery. Treason, bribery, high misdemeanors. And
right.
It also says it's for the vice president or any civil official. And then on top of that, most people don't know what high crimes and misdemeanors are.
Right. Yeah.
Not really.
When you start to talk to them, they think you've got to create some grand crime. No, it's a crime of office.
Yep.
Misusing your office. It doesn't even necessarily have to be criminal. You're held to a higher standard than everyone else. So
right.
You have to harp on the correct, definitions of these things. I think here on Wikipedia it says high crimes and misdemeanors such as perjury of oath, abuse of authority, bribery, intimidation, misuse of assets, failure to supervise, dereliction of duty, unbecoming conduct, refusal to obey a lawful order, chronic intoxication, and tax evasion. Sound familiar?
Well, the chronic intoxication, does that apply to Adderall? Do we know? Does snorting Adderall count? I will say there obviously that falls with, and conduct unbecoming. I mean, we could clear a lot of people out of office with that one. You know what I mean? That in and of itself. But it depends on what the standard of unbecoming is, because if we've set an awful new norm, then I think if the president is the standard for conduct unbecoming and he stays in office, then I guess the standard is Benny Hill, I think, at this point. You know what I mean? Like, as long as Yakety Sax is playing, you could chase anyone around at high speed, like some old misogynist cartoon. I completely agreed. And obviously bribery is the big part of it. And that's why the taxes are so crucial. That's why knowing where his money is coming from. And here's the thing too, this is the 8 years in office. How long do you think it takes to make $1 billion or $2 billion or $5 billion? If you could make, there's a ton of reasons why guys go to.
It hasn't taken Putin long at all to do that.
Right. Well, he's just been stealing from the Russian people. It's super easy when you can do that way, and you can just raid the offices of the opposition and put everybody in jail. That's which is, by the way, Trump's wet dream. But there's a huge part of this where if you could make $1 billion in 4 years, you'd put up with almost anything, wouldn't you? You know what I mean? That's why a lot of these criminals, they're like, yeah, I'll do 5 years. I can get out. I'll just bury the money or the diamonds or whatever it is, and I'll get it when I get out, or I'll filter it through somebody.
Of many a TV show where they've been in prison and they've got the armored car heist. All the money buried.
48 hours.
And they got to go get it. 48 hours, yeah.
Yes, that's the plot. I mean, ultimately, they're supposed to all get out of prison, and they'll split it when they all get out, and one of them breaks out of prison and takes the money early, so he goes and get Eddie Murphy and help me find the guy who broke out, who was in your armed robbery gang, right? And this is... So, and who wouldn't sit that out? Like 5 years of hard labor for $1 billion? There are people who do 5 years of hard labor to end up broke with student loans. You know what I mean? Like, are you kidding me? So the idea that he would be in the presidency for 4 years and then end up getting Trump Tower Moscow, that in and of itself is a deal. And like I said, just getting the briefings.
Especially when you have the option of fleeing the country.
Yes, right, afterwards. Or the beyond option, the necessity. You know what I mean? Like, it may be necessary. Like, watch for the headquarters of Trump, the Trump organization, to move to Scotland, where his other, or Ireland, where Apple had its headquarters. Or for obviously the Cayman Islands. There's going to be a bunch of that, or Epstein's Island, for God's sake. Like, God knows what they're going to use that place for.
Well, that's actually in the United States, because that's U.S. Virgin Islands.
Well, it's private land, I suppose. Yeah.
It has not been recognized as a state.
That's right. Yeah, you'd have to seize it and make it, Trumpistan. But yeah, clearly the Caymans are an option as well. And God knows, Macedonia, where, or Switzerland, where, there's a lot of loosey-goosey legal issues as far as where you can set up bank accounts and bounce things through. There's a bunch of those places in the world. So it's no surprise that they would, if the New York AG shutters the Trump organization, and says you can't do business in the state anymore, which is entirely a possibility, by the way. They would simply just set it up in one of these tax havens and just continue to run from there. And unless we change the rules on real estate ownership in the United States, as far as foreign ownership of real estate in the United States, which, by the way, is got to be part of the plan for affordable housing, because in a lot of major cities, one of the reasons why there is so many, why apartments are so expensive and why there's so many vacancies that are unfilled at the same time, is because foreign investors just hold on to these properties because they're valuable just for their real estate growth in these markets, and they don't care if they're ever full. Yes, they just get to sit on the building. Downtown LA has 8 or 10 buildings that are basically empty, but for the storefronts in the bottom, and even those are, just perfunctory and shift all the time. They're like pop-up stores. They rent out every so often.
Yeah, there's so much empty housing in the United States. We can house everyone.
Exactly. And they're just sitting on these buildings for a decade because they know in a place like the United States, they'll be worth more. Even with a fluctuation as bad as 2008, the real estate in the United States is far more valuable and far more stable than, say, China or Russia or any parts of Eastern Europe, and countries like France and Germany and England have much tighter rules on that kind of stuff that they've done over time. And we, under the illusion that we were helping immigrants come here and buy stuff like, oh, well, you've got a rich relative who can buy you a house so you can have a stable house in the United States. We allowed those rules to sit out when in reality we were just giving carte blanche to major billionaires, and multinationals to form these fake blind LLCs and buy tracts of buildings and leave them empty. And again, that goes to also undermining the electorate, essentially, making people completely feel unstable. I can't get an apartment. My rent's going up. You put pressure on the citizenry of a country through 3 or 4 different tax. You don't just do the one. And that's
people so busy they can't vote.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We got to take a break. I appreciate the call, Brett. Means a lot. It's always great to hear from. I wish we could play the theme, but I will post later on where you can watch the Rockford Files, and we'll have we'll find it because I got on a kick of it. It was on Netflix for a while, and I got on a kick watching it again because I love that show so much. But he talks about Dr. Bosca on that show. That's my doctor that I got my flight accreditation. You have to get your medical from a FAA accredited physician, and they mentioned Dr. Bosca in the show. That's a real person, and I actually went to him because that was James Garner's real doctor. Go figure. Anyways, weird side note. Talk to you guys in a minute. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Lotus Water. I appreciate that. That's great. Thank you very much. I want to roll back through the chat a little bit. Carrie's saying there's so many residential buildings going up in Chicago, none of the retail space at the bottom are being leased. That might be a timing issue, but also they make those more expenses. Can't Stop Lying, I think you're talking about the buildings in Vegas, as far as they just buy these they put up a big building and then just sit on it. I mean, look at the Chinese investment in ghost cities where they are. They build these like miles and miles of empty buildings and sit on them as investment properties. The construction is so substandard, they're going to fall down before anybody ever moves in. Unlike the United States, where we actually have real construction standards and these things will live. So if they'll last a long time, even if you leave them empty. And, I guess besides that one building in San Francisco that they built on a fault line that's tilting. Have you heard about that one? Oh my God. Yeah, like that one's like, I forget the name of the actual building, but holy smokes. Let's see. Yeah, I'll find this. Did you see did you look up cooler of penises to see if you could find that?
No. Some things even I won't Google.
Yeah, Millennium Tower in San Francisco is sinking and leaning right now.
Oh boy.
There's
Something in common with the Millennium Tower.
It's crazy. It's and people already bought homes in it, and then they can't get out. Yeah, 301 Mission Street is a development in Market Street. It's a primary residential building, but it's they built it on soft ground and it's tilting, and it is the tallest building in the area. Thank you. Okay. It's the tallest building in the area. Yes, we'll do the live read after this.
Thank you.
Residents of San Francisco's Leaning Tower pitch $100 million fix to city officials. People living in San Francisco's sinking and leaning Millennium Tower have presented since its opening in 2009. The building has sunk 18 inches and leans 14 inches to the west. In an earthquake zone, are you high? Oh yeah, the Trump building in Baku, the Vijay Tower, the one of the best.
You say best.
Yeah, well, I mean, watching Rachel Maddow, address it is one of my favorite lesbianic moments in history. Just watching her get pink in the cheeks, just like trying to describe it. I think Carl is being sarcastic in our chat room, but I can't tell. Because they did identify what I said in the FBI.
I'm Dick Kay from Back on the Beat, and here is the mega worldwide radio program with Hal Sparks.
Welcome back. We have another caller on the line, I think, and we may have figured out how they can listen. I don't know, though. Devin, have we figured that out? Do we know?
I believe we figured this out, Hal. Let's give it a go. We got Mike on the north side.
Okay, cool. Hey, Mike, welcome to the show. Can you hear us? I don't think he can. Mike, can you hear me? Nope, I don't hear Mike. Okay, sorry, Mike. We apologize. We'll try and work that part of it out. I don't know why there's a loop and he's not hearing me or he's not getting audio to that. That's a board patching thing where you guys are, so we'll have to fix that later.
In other words, it's Devin's fault.
No, it's not. It's literally wires. But first, you know what you can do? You can travel the world in a week without leaving Ravinia, with concerts by the Lucerne Symphony Orchestra and the Shanghai Symphony in the same week, and the Ravinia premiere of Leonard Bernstein's Trouble in Tahiti, starring Tony Award winner Paulo Zott and Grammy Award winner Patricia Racette. Tickets at ravinia.org. Ravinia.org. You should, if you live in driving distance of Ravinia, or you're flying to the Chicagoland area, it's one of those great things.
Finally gotten perfect for that kind of thing.
Yes, it's getting quite. Yeah, it's much better. Welcome to the chat, Jude. Good to see you. And Julie as well, thank you for joining us. If you have a question or something you want to add, because our phones are wonky in getting to us somehow, you can go to the chat room at infotainmentwars.com on my YouTube channel. Follow the link on my Twitter feed, and you can ask us a question there. That's one of the ways to do it. I think we got I don't know if it's a mild trolling or not. But I can't. There's no sarcasm emoji quite yet. But one of the people in the chat was saying that my ability to figure out conspiracy theories that even the FBI can't figure out is amazing. I think I could just feel the eye roll in that. Here's the thing: the FBI have figured it out. What they figured out also, along with the fact that both our election systems have been hacked and that there's a lot of interference, is that the Senate doesn't care. That literally, that Mitch McConnell is making sure we don't care. Is scuttling bills to stop any normal protections against it. It is
either getting something out of it or there's something bigger looming over their heads.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the expenditure cost-wise, it is not prohibitive. This is not money only going to blue states for elections, for example. There is nothing about this that, in the abstract, would harm anybody who's legitimately elected. It would clearly cause a problem for someone who got into office under sketchy circumstances or is counting on needing that help in the future. Now that, certain gerrymandering issues in certain states has been addressed, others obviously are still benefiting from it, but certain states have been pushed back in their efforts, so they're going to need all the help they can get to stay in office. There's, clearly a point. And by the way, everybody should yell as loud as they can in the chat room at Ginger, because she's listening to the show at work. So, we need to send a message out, like just get her busted for listening at work. That's the in terms of the what I was talking about the real estate issue. That's an ongoing concern for affordable housing in the United States. There are entire city blocks in most American big cities that have foreign investors who are intentionally not filling their buildings because financially they have no need to. They basically bought the buildings outright with funds that are sketchy to start with, or are quite frankly simply the effect of being an oil billionaire or a money laundered through Deutsche Bank and whatnot. And they get to sit on those properties only paying the taxes on them. So if they want, they can fill them just enough to pay off the taxes on them, which, by the way, because of the tax structure on those buildings, they don't go up. They only go up based on how many people are in the building, not how many vacancies they have, which is the change I would institute were I a mayor of one of those cities, that there would be a vacancy tax that is progressive. The longer this thing stays vacant, the higher the tax goes up, which would give you an impetus to lower the rent and fill the space. Because at some point there will be a tipping point where the ROI on that is strong enough where you'll either have to sell the building if you're just investing in it as a squat, to hold on to the real estate sales, or if you're keeping it half empty because you don't want it filled and you're effectively raising because you own 3 other buildings and you want to keep rents high. You should have to fill those empty apartments or offices or stores because again, you see this all over Los Angeles. You see a lot of it in Chicago. You certainly see a ton of it in New York. New York has a real problem with Russian investment in their buildings down there. And you see, get an Airbnb in New York. The person that you will be interacting with, Russian will be their first language, 80% of the time, guaranteed. And they will tell you, by the way, don't tell anybody that this is an Airbnb. Because they buy. I've done it. I've done Airbnbs in New York dozens of times, almost every time Russian. The other half of the time, the other part of the time, the other 20% of the time, I would say Chinese or random subletter. Somebody subletting a sublet, but usually the owner of that initial sublet, whoever owns the actual condo or whatever it is or apartment, a lot of times Russian still. It is and by the way, New York passed a law about that, so they've gotten more secret about it. That's what it's like. You whisper when you get this space. When you go and they're like, hey, keep it on the DL, will you? And then the person you're talking to is literally named Boris, but their Airbnb name is Tammy, and they have some random picture that they got out of they photographed one of those frames you buy at a store that already has a picture in it. Oh, that's interesting. I've seen that woman's face in Office Depot a bunch, that kind of thing. So this is a Julie in our chat room saying, and don't bring your cell phone with you, and don't run around naked in the Airbnb. Just saying, because they have cameras running in them. Yeah, all the Russian ones have cameras in them that they can use. And by the way, don't use FaceApp. Can we just tell everybody that? FaceApp is owned by a Russian company. They have rights to the scans of your face that they use to make the effect in perpetuity throughout the universe and elsewhere. Is what is the actual wording.
It's an urban myth. It really is a big.
Yeah, it's a Russian company. King David.
A bunch of those, and then I looked at myself in the mirror, and I was like, "I'm way ahead of you, pal."
I am not using that. I have no interest in that. I thought the opposite was, Like you should, right about the time we start getting all these apps that make us look better than we actually do, like all these selfie smoothers, you know, the same people want, like, I wonder what I would look like even worse. I don't get it. We got to take a break. When we come back, we do have a bit of a happy ending. Not the least of which is that we've been able to be online with Johnny the entire time. Yeah, that's right, and fairly smooth. Next week, I'm gonna have, because the constant attacks on the ACA are happening, we're gonna have a special guest on with us as well. And like Johnny joining us this week, I think, you know, we might be able to talk him into being on next week when he doesn't have to make job. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, it's possible, because you sound pretty good. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, please. It helps us out. Thanks so much. And if you're listening or watching right now, we got 235 people in the chat room. Give us a thumbs up right now. We got 114 likes. I don't mind the thumbs down. You can give us a thumbs down, too. You know, give us a thumbs down if you're sitting in your own swill, finger up your nose, and going, Trump is, I'm tired of winning. You know, give us a thumbs down if that's you. That's fine. We'll be back right after this. Jim is absolutely right. FaceApp does use your face as the avatar for fake troll accounts. And they can use any version of it, so they can make you look younger or older. That's the trick with it. You take the picture of you like, oh, look at me, I'm old, or this is me when I was like way younger and all smooth. But then they can actually take the scan of your face, make as many variations as they want. And that means they could have accounts where it looks like you've had the account for a long time and you have pictures of you from 10 years ago and pictures of you now. Because that's one of the ways they used to spot the fake accounts was, oh, this is just this one face frozen in time, because they stole these pictures from, regular like clip art sites, right? Which were all shot at the same time. Yeah. But now they can have a whole line of things, like you're now 60, and since most of the people who use Facebook for to get their news are older, they're more likely to believe people in their same age range. So FaceApp will get a version of your face that looks like you've been on, to people like my mom who are on Facebook all the time, will look like an account that's legit and been on for 10 years, and not, when they tell you, look out for trolls, who are, have these accounts, and these are the limitations that they usually have on. Thanks to FaceApp, they can get around that. Are you insane? Like, the minute it started coming out and like celebs were pushing it, thanks. I was like, they're paying these celebs to do this. Certain celebrities are getting money to do this. Oh boy. Yeah. We're just a new company. We're pushing this really fun app, and we'll pay you to do it. Like, it happens all the time. I get offers. I say no. Because I don't know who they are. I don't know who the company is. It's not a physical object. It requires people to give access to their phones. No. Yeah, Brad, this is exactly my concern. He's saying, Al, you're so right. My mom does the same thing, and this is how we lost 2016. Yeah, they trust people who they think are their contemporaries, and now they're going, hey, that's, letting you know that if you check somebody's account and they only have like 9 pictures and they all are the same, you should be suspect of that. But you get 10 years, oh, it's real.
Now back to the House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, 773-763-9278.
Oh, the conversations we have been able to have during the breaks now that Johnny Million has been with us throughout the whole thing on the stream.
What a show you're missing.
The show you get to see on or hear on the YouTube side of things is pretty hysterical in that regard. But here's the thing: in all honesty, folks, if you have FaceApp on your phone, delete it. If another one comes up and wants access to your camera and your phone and your camera roll, it can now, that access has to be limited to putting pictures from the app in your camera roll and only access to your camera when the app is open. If it doesn't specifically say that, don't use it. If it's not from a major company that you already know and trust, don't use it, and until you've kind of gotten the all clear. Because this is dangerous, because we were saying during the break that during the election of 2016, a lot of the troll accounts on Facebook and Twitter and whatnot, they would post pictures of this person, this fake person, but they were all the same shots. They were, from someone all of the same range, because they were stealing them either from clip art or they were stealing them from someone else's, some poor, rando Russian person or, European person. And they'll steal them from France, put them in the England fake accounts. They'll steal the English ones, put them in the US accounts, or the Australian ones, and vice versa. And they'll flip them back and forth, because the chances of you seeing them within your country are fairly slim. If they take too many of them across a wide time span, it'll show up, and some people are able to track their pictures and know that, like, hey, this got reused someplace. And so they basically only took like 3 about the same random time span, and they would create the fake accounts on that. Most of the time, like I said, they were clip art. Now they're using things like FaceApp, and they can manipulate the shot and make it look like you started this account 10 years ago. And there'll be a ton of that as we go forward. And by the way, watch for people doing, like online videos using deepfake with these accounts, with these pictures. This is going to be an ongoing problem, and we are not prepared for it. And it is my primary concern going forward. The safety and security of our voting systems, and that everyone votes. I had a really nice conversation with my niece, who is technically my second cousin, but she's like a niece or whatever, who is turning 18, and she's going to vote for the first time in the next election. And this is, infusing the necessity of it in her is super important. Caring about our democracy and the fact that we do transfer power peacefully and not taking that for granted, all those aspects are super important. So those two aspects are going to be something we're going to be hitting on pretty heavily on this show, actually, going forward. And Mike Farb on Twitter, who's been doing a thing called Unhack the Vote. If you look up that hashtag or that particular, I think that's just his, the actual, like Twitter, yeah, Unhack the Vote, yeah. So, Mike Farb 1 is what is MikeFarb 1. Is actually his site. He runs a thing called Unhack the Vote, unhackthevote.com. They've done the deepest dives into a lot of these things, kind of, around the story that we've seen. And they're on this. And one of the things that you're eminently aware of when you look at any of this stuff is the direct intentional racial disparity around voting rights. That they are, when I said earlier that they're going to give the broken and easily hackable machines to the black districts, that is following a pattern from Bush 1. This idea of broken down machines, or none at all, or not enough, that's something that they like pilot program in Republican secretaries of state on a state level during Bush 1. And then in Bush 2, it became the modus operandi of most of the red state secretaries of state. And Chris Kobach's probably the most, egregious one. And Trump was trying to put him in charge of this, prove to me that a bunch of illegals voted, that entire thing. They break down point by point. They're following all these stories. So if you go to unhackthevote.com, you can see the most suspect players in all of this. Michigan obviously was a pivotal state during the last election, and they have a story, voters turned away at Detroit polling site due to missing voting machines. This is not accidental. They have before anybody else, and as this story came out about the election interference in Georgia, Farb had been tweeting about this for a while, all the way back to November of 2018. He has a story, the Georgia elections server wiped just after a lawsuit was filed against the officials. So they're calling this misfeasance. Like I said, it's malfeasance. When Stacey Abrams, I would argue, won that election. And the fact that the guy who was in charge of the election systems was running it directly interfered with the proper count of the vote. And then when a lawsuit was filed that specifically pointed to evidence, not suspected, like we think the election was stolen, none of that. They had evidence. And they still do, by the way. The wiping of the machines didn't stop that, and it's all going forward because of that. It's the attempt at undermining the vote long term. But either way, this guy's been in office for a couple of years specifically. They're keeping track on Unhack the Vote of most of these stories. So I recommend you take a look at that. Follow Mike Farb 1. I'll tweet out the site to everybody so you guys get a look at it. But it's going to be incredibly crucial as we go through this this election cycle. I can't even. I mean, obviously, we're near the end of the show. We're in our last 3 minutes, and I'm sorry we didn't get to our other caller because I don't know if he was pro or con what I've been talking about. But in reality, I don't care. I'm aware enough of the facts about this, and I don't have any fantasy that there was some weird, bizarre conspiracy to keep Donald Trump out of office, unless you count how Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham treated him during the primary season before he won, and they, dropped trowel and lined up in front of him. I have zero respect.
We seriously need to examine Lindsey Graham's brain when he
I don't think you'll find anything wrong. I'll think you'll find a strategy of self-protection, because not only is Trump...
I'm going to say I don't think you'll find a brain.
Yeah, right. I don't think you'll find anything at all, right. In all honesty, I think he has a strategy of self-protection that he will not get reelected without. He is in a Trump state, a solidly Trump state at this point. Post-Trump, I don't know what that state looks like as far as its voting record. It is obviously shifting, as are a lot of southern states demographically, with a growing number of black voters and a growing number of Hispanic voters. So they will fight that shifting demographic as hard as they can. But it is a losing battle. But until such time as there's a tipping point, right up to the point where it's, if it's, 500,000 to 500,001, they will fight tooth and nail to protect the control point that they have. You can't take that for granted. I want to thank Johnny Million for joining us as always, at JMillion on Twitter. Of course, Johnny's going to tweet out some links to the music you've heard over the course of the show today. And then, of course, I'm in Atlantic City this week. So Monday through Thursday, I'll be at Howie Mandel's Comedy Club in Atlantic City. After that, I'm in Indianapolis at Helium next month. And August 5th, Nerd Halen at the Whiskey. August 11th, I'm doing my monthly show at Flappers. If you're in the area and you're part of the Blue Patch Brigade for any of these, you can come to the show and bring a guest for free. Just let me know you're coming. support us on Patreon if you can. Patreon.com/HalSparks. It really helps us. We are ice skating uphill. Thank you so much, Johnny Million. We'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you later. Thanks, Devin. Ace's work, brother. Cheers. All right. There we go.
Thank you, Al.
Yeah. And of course, Johnny Million, you're welcome to hang out for the post show for a little bit. I'm going to do a little bit like that, but you're free to go if you need. I'm sure people have questions and stuff for you. I have a graduation party that is happening here. Yeah, at 3 o'clock, so East Coast time. So it's 2 now, so I've got a little bit of time to hang out with you guys. This is an interesting... Hal and Johnny, you're the best. Free Speech TV someday. Randy next week. Thanks, everyone. Love this chat room. Thanks, Prof. You will not see me on Free Speech TV. It's Tom Hartman and Stephanie are both on Free Speech TV. They air their shows on there. I think it's a better outlet to be on YouTube because you are freer to promote and sell your own stuff. One of the reasons why we had problems selling the tail end of the Sexy Liberal Tour when I was doing them was because she had moved to Free Speech TV and she couldn't promote the dates. I think that's counterintuitive. We are already ice skating uphill against right-wing that is much more powerfully funded than progressive stations. Not just the Bain Capital, buying us out so we no longer have, stations to be on, but we're going to do that, and then we're going to give up the ability to pay our rent. You know what I mean? By being on Free Speech TV, it makes no sense to me. Plus, I think there's a double standard there with, like I said, Tom gets to do his book selling things, but somehow Steph can't talk about Sexy Liberal shows and promote them. I don't know. It's just not right. I don't agree with it. So. Needless to say, by the way, we got 217 people in our chat room, and thank you guys for being with us today. Smash the like, give us a thumbs up while we're here if you may. That would be really lovely. By the way, 4th show in a row with no audio issues as far as hearing me, or in this case, hearing Johnny doing it from his place, which was great. If we could just solve getting audio to us and from us. That's a wiring issue I thought we would have issues with. I'm not surprised at that as far as the routing. Because I think Mike, the engineer who wires the boards up, hates the idea that we're using some sort of audio to get in. Hates a website having access, because he's worried about hackers. We should get Mike to work for the election board because he would keep everybody out. That's right. And Can't Stop Lying, thank you for helping us promote the Teespring as always. Fantastic. I have a merch store, which is great. It's teespring.com/stores, plural, /Hal Sparks. Your Zoltan shirts and your Impeach 45 shirts and all those fun things are all available there. And at some point, Johnny, you got to put your iTunes link in here. Let people know because they might want to, hear and download your stuff. You should consider putting them in the YouTube lexicon for music that people can use as bumpers and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, I think it's out there.
Because I think you can charge for it or something like that. Although, watch that.
I put it out through CD Baby, and I think that
they do that.
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Cool. Well, great. Maybe I'll get an accidental copyright strike just because we're using them on the show.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Did you block the business center again, Hal Sparks? Yeah. No, I'm actually doing this from my cousin's office. He's graciously allowed me to use his home office to do the show. Their internet is not the best in the world, but we're in the middle of Cleveland. What do you want? It's not that. But yeah, thanks, Prof. Thanks for being here. Hal, what did you think of the new presidential seal? Did you see that story, Johnny?
It was amazing.
Oh yeah, so dude put up a fake presidential. I mean, understandably. Let's see. Hold on.
I wouldn't have noticed it if it weren't pointed out to me.
Yeah. Well, that's the curious part of it is that's how it's got to work with these guys. It's like the yes men. Remember those guys? they're a like, it's not quite a troll group, but they punk people essentially. It's like almost like a morning zoo crew kind of thing where they trick you into, believing something. But ultimately they're so good at it because they come off as sycophants. And with this White House, that's the way to do it. That's the way. If you pretend to like Trump, he'll retweet you. I have often thought that I need to do a kind of like a fake pro-Trump Twitter account and just jack it up with all kinds of pro-Trump stuff and then start tweeting him like, we support you, but put a link in there that's obviously a rebuttal, because I think he would do it. A bunch of people have done that. So thank you so much, Al Vickery, and you'll be sorely missed over the next couple of weeks. I agree. Richard says 45 is a puppet. I agree. Although puppets, I like puppets. Yeah, we got 61 patrons. We're trying to hit 100. If you guys can help at all, that's greatly appreciated. If you can't be a regular patron, I understand. You can help us out through PayPal. I'm trying to set up a wish list on Amazon for some of the gear that we need, because I know some people want to help that way and they've reached out. That's awesome. We've actually been able to sort of upgrade our ability to switch cameras and whatnot. Look at that. Yeah, if you're watching the chat, not too shabby. It didn't cost anything. It's just an additional thing that I've done. I think it was like an app for $25, but ultimately it helps. It did cost something. After all, actually, I did spend more money on the show. But hopefully, these little pieces will grow in. I eventually want to, maybe Johnny Million, I don't know what your schedule is like on Wednesdays. We'll try a Hump Days with Hal where you can come on and we'll use, we'll use some sort of, we'll try to Skype you in and see how well that is for a run, just like do a hangout.
What time do you do that?
It changes all the time because everybody's all over the place. So I don't know what, you and I will figure out a schedule, Okay. Yeah. So there you go. Let's see. I'm going to scroll back through the chat. 45 as a puppet was actually on the fake presidential seal behind Trump, which is pretty great.
Golf clubs.
Yeah, the fact that it was holding golf clubs instead of arrows was hilarious. It's so incredible. But again, you're going to see a ton more of this because they can't differentiate between because anybody who lacks sincerity is never going to be able to spit. Yeah, we were trying to organize that timing on that, Brad, but it just didn't happen. But it will be in the next couple of weeks. I'm obviously in Atlantic City this Wednesday, but hopefully the following one is when we're trying to make it happen. So fingers crossed. David in our chat room says, I hope Stephanie, Tom, and Randy provide a united front. Whoops, did we freeze? What happened? No, we're good. Okay, provide a united front. The bigger headache is Comcast, which will not provide free speech TV or RT America at any price because that would expose the limits of MSNBC and vertical integration. Maybe about free speech TV. Again, I think it's not helpful. I think YouTube is a better outlet than some random low-rung nearly website quality cable network. Honestly, and RT, first of all, they're a propaganda arm of the Russian government. Period. End of story. And the worst is that they had a bunch of people who quit. Who once they started covering how Alexei Navalny was being covered, the people that were assassinated in London, all that's the poisonings, they play up well, they kind of had it coming and nobody really proved that it was us. That's the angle. Forget it. If you go on there, you're buying into that. There's a big difference between if you go on quote mainstream channels and you say something that's outside the bounds of what they consider okay and then they don't have you back. There's a huge difference between that and we need you to come on and give credence to the garbage we say when you're not here. Yeah. Because you are our equalizer. You are giving them credit. And that, to me, is dangerous. So, across the board, like, how Free Speech TV is on DirecTV, but not in HD. Well, that's, that, Brad says, well, that's probably because not everybody sends their stuff out in HD. Because, like I said, most of the stuff you're seeing is just like these, webcam quality things. Like, we're trying to upgrade this. Like, I've narrowed down my system now where I'm going to be bringing my Canon with me, my camera, not an actual Canon, my Canon camera with me, because the software that, thanks to our patrons, we're now using, Ecamm, will take like the input from a Canon camera directly. It's great. Like, that's a brand new thing, just via USB, and so the quality will go up immensely, and I can do 4K quality when we have a good enough Ethernet or internet connection, which I usually do in Vegas and will increasingly have in LA as we fix it. So, yeah. Amy says, "Why don't you come work at the sale barn with me, Hal?" Well, yeah, that's a good idea. Just pack it in, and I don't mind working at the sale barn. It sounds good. But I got to shift it to Piggly Wiggly first. So. Yeah. David Lane says, cannons can't be brought on airplanes. Second Amendment rights my ass. I know. So unfair. This used to be America. How? So I stream Stephanie's show online, and that is HD. Love me the Tech Talk. Yeah, I don't think, I think hers is, and I know Tom's studio show is. I just don't think the shows where they stream his book signings is. And God knows what the other shows are like on there that they have. Their little kind of like citizen journalist stuff. That's all on, if it's not on a phone, it's not HD. That sounded good. Big crash outside the door. They're loading stuff for the party, so we're getting close to where people are going to start in there. But let's see. Hal, have you visited the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I have. I've been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame here, and I have my issues with it. Have you been, Johnny? Have you ever been?
Not for like 15, 20 years.
Yeah. My biggest problem over the last couple of years is Alan Free is the reason why it's here. Alan Free created the phrase, he made up the phrase rock and roll on the air in Cleveland. He's a local Cleveland DJ who coined the phrase rock and roll, right? Mm-hmm. Trying to explain the new genre that was emerging. And made it popular nationwide when other stations wouldn't play it or didn't want to, right? Alan Free died, and they had his ashes in an urn at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. His family lent his ashes there. They were in an urn in the place, in kind of a relatively substantial place. And they had a display about Alan Free there. And they took it down and gave the ashes back to his family, basically evicted Alan Free's ashes from the place, to put up a display of Beyonce's dresses. Now, first of all, Beyonce's not rock and roll. It's R&B. I have no problem with that. Have an R&B Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? But at the same time, if you're going to put up a Beyonce thing and say, this is our display about her because she fits in because of genre crossover or whatever, put her microphone that she used for an album in, put a keyboard that they used to write some of the stuff, put, some element of like the notes from her lyrics like they do with the Jimi Hendrix stuff. The Jimi Hendrix part is one of the best parts of it. So they have a lot of his notebooks and that kind of stuff. They don't. They just have her dresses. And they kicked out Alan Free's ashes to put them there. Gross.
It's a little questionable.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. And also, it's arbitrary and made up. That's the other part of it. There's no real standard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just Ding Dong from Rolling Stone, right?
Yeah, who they choose and why, and this kind of like like kowtowing to it. It's kind of an amazing act of branding, if anything. So, somebody's saying there's a Piggly Wiggly in Zion, Illinois, and it damn well better be. Piggly Wiggly was the first shop for yourself supermarket. It was the IKEA-ing of grocery stores. Did you know that?
Well, I knew that the name was just kind of made up for fun.
Yeah, but it was the first grocery store where you got it yourself. Everything before that was like the Olsen store in Little House. Remember, they would come in and ask, can I get some rock candy and some gingham, and I need a bag of rice and blah blah, and they'd have it all behind the stand, behind the counter.
Self-serve grocery.
Yeah, so you just go get it yourself, and that guy worked for, I think, Kroger, or one of the stores that was growing, and suggested the idea, and they fired him for it. And then he went and started Piggly Wiggly, and then Kroger, of course, went that way. And he never got credit for you can't patent that, I don't think.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, anyways, so insofar as the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame goes, there's a Music Hall of Fame kind of thing. I forget what it's called in Seattle. But it's a really cool building, and I enjoy it.
Starbucks?
Yeah, right. That's what it is. Yeah, the first Starbucks is actually there, and you can go to it. It's got the old school sign in front of it. Yeah, yeah. They sell more cups than they do coffee. They sell more. People buy the permanent cups that the ones with the label on it of where you got it, for all those people, the weird people who collect Hard Rock T-shirts and Starbucks. I got the Starbucks Shanghai cup. I got the Starbucks Little Rock, Arkansas cup. That kind of thing. Oh, I just got to get to Toledo and I'm done. Oh no, Zanzibar. What the hell? They had to open one in Zanzibar. But yeah, so they the House of Blues has similar things, and Hard Rock has a similar thing. But the one that's kind of meaningful is the one that's in Seattle, because it's the actual first one.
And that logo used to be crazy.
Oh yeah, right. They accused it of being a pagan. The Christians flipped out about it recently. Because they went back to the double-tailed mermaid, and they said that's Satanism, and that's okay. So we do know paganism isn't Satanism, right? We're all aware of this, that they took some of the imagery from lost my like my grandfather said when he went to the bathroom, I lost my stream for a second. I got a stagger in my stream. I'm all right. That was Kathy B in our chat room is saying that's hilarious. The whole logo is witchcraft thing. Well, there are tons of sigils in American businesses that are technically witchcraft symbols. It is a form of witchcraft. If you want to know more about it, you can watch Grant Morrison's YouTube video about it from the Disinfo conference in New York. Grant Morrison's a comic book writer and sort of reviver. He comes in and helps failing comic book. He's the guy who brought back the Arkham Asylum Batman thing that really made the Joker into what it was, that turned it into the thing that became the Heath Ledger version. He's amazing. But he did the Invisibles, which is one of my favorite comic book series, and filled it full of magic symbols in an attempt to enrich himself, and apparently it worked. So he teaches you how to do sigils if you're having any interest in that video. It's pretty great. There you go. Yeah, so let's see. Did we pop back on? There are Dunkin' Donuts in Pakistan. What is the world coming to? Got to get him a 5G hotspot. Yes, this is true. Yes, reload your page and I'll come back on. Yeah, reload your page and I'll reappear. Typo. I get lumpy hands. Let's see. I have the Starbucks cup that says Chuck Norris drank from with Chuck written on it. Holy smokes. That's really? They have that? That's amazing. So yeah, so in terms of like, I don't know, the post show gets off into all kinds of directions, Johnny. That's the great thing about it. That's why, you know, yeah. Too bad Buffer Boy ain't allowed to talk about Israel anyhow. Right, I can't even mention it. Yes, yeah, I appreciate you guys stamping the likes. We appreciate that. We're doing. Oh wait, I forgot I can do. Dun-dun-dun. Post show. Look at that. Smash that like button, folks. We're in the post show now. We officially started and restarted. Anyway, so it gave us a second show, which is great, and actually starts us kind of from scratch after it stops, starting again. Reloaded, still spinning. Sorry about that. That's an affect of internet either where you are. That's hard for me to pin down, but I'm doing my best. Hal, did you see Trump's latest repulsive Twitter rant against Elijah Cummings? Read Joy Reid's Twitter response. Agreed. Yeah, this is all coded stuff about, and he thinks any black district is awful. He just, like, he takes that as rote. And I certainly have my problems with the way, like, Baltimore has been managed, but that's less of a congressional issue than a mayoral issue over time. Because Baltimore is a fantastic town in general. It has a lead poisoning problem that's generational. Until that's handled, it won't matter who runs it. Same thing with sections of Cleveland, sections of Chicago. Until we deal with the lead poisoning aspect of it, anybody born around that area or downstream from that area or raised in that area is going to be poisoned by the amount of lead toxicity in the soil and air, period. Yeah. I didn't read too much into the Trump I can do whatever I want part, because he was talking in context of tariffs, and he believes that. It didn't mean that he believed he could do anything he wants as president like he was a king. He's not under that illusion, I don't believe.
Crappy headline, then.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's the problem. He says so much clickbaity stuff. This is the problem I had with some of the stuff that he's doing. He's doing these little flare-ups. He's saying that kind of thing, knowing full well he's in the clear with what he's actually saying, because he knows he even said it at one of his most recent, that the thing that was, when Mueller was initially supposed to talk, they set up this Trump rally that night because he was going to, reference it, and then Mueller got bumped a week, but they didn't have a rally that night, right? So the rally that went on that they already had scheduled, he didn't have Mueller to draw from, so he kind of ranted about whatever. But at one point, he goes, watch, I'll say this and they'll go crazy. Maybe if I'll stay in office forever. We just did this thing and da-da-da-da. And he does that regularly. He baits the press with the power of the presidency to get them chasing like he's throwing he's faking a throw. This is the difference. Okay, so when he tweets about trans service members and he's changing the policy, that's him throwing the ball. He knows the ball's coming back. He knows legally he's not going to be able to do that, and the ball will be returned to him. But the press will chase after that for a while until the legal thing works out, right? In this case, he's faking the throw. He just whiffs it and everybody's head jerks and they all go squirrel and they race after it for a time. And we're all disgusted because we know how he feels and we know what he thinks and we know about all the other stuff that he does, that you buy into everything else that he's doing. You think this is on par with that stuff, and it isn't. And you have to watch out following, after that stuff. It is along the lines of the Jussie Smollett kind of thing, where immediately everybody, because it's so believable at face, because stuff like that happens, that you immediately dive straight into believing it without vetting it, letting your own, kind of letting your own BS detector filter it first.
I'm still very upset with him.
Amos let's see, he didn't notice the New York super chat and he called me someone. Did I, Amos? Where was that? Did it scroll through? In the new chat setup on this, I can't see the ongoing thing, so I will look. I beg your pardon if that was the case. I don't have a secondary YouTube page up, which shows all the super chats sitting there. because it means I have to take some of the feed going down, and that takes some of the feed going out. That someone's super chat was Amos. Oh, I didn't see this. I didn't even see that. I don't know that I referenced it as someone. I think that was some. Well, I don't know what I said. I apologize if you even got the idea that I don't love and adore you, Amos, so much. For that, let's see. Let me see if I can bring up. Oh, it's of course the window isn't open. Grabba. Okay, I don't know why that page isn't opening. I'll look on another source. Give me 1 second. So, got to scroll back because it doesn't keep a tallying list of super chats the way it does on the website. And when I restarted the chat, a chunk of it vanished. So I apologize if I didn't see that. I feel terrible, Amos. Big hug, brother. Welcome back, Robin. Okay, I'm better now. Good, Amos. I apologize. Yeah. I will never steamroll you. I appreciate you, brother. Don't hit that button again. Oh, did it knock me off? See, that's what happens if I try to have the YouTube page open at the same time when the feed is, I'm using as much of my bandwidth as I have. Yeah, that's a problem. So, Hal, you've got to get off Verizon. I'm not on Verizon. I don't know what website. They're using AT&T here. So there you go. And God knows this entire thing, because my cousin's a marshal, his entire internet system could be running through some sort of VPN filter that the Marshal Service set up on it that, delays everything. Have fun, Carrie. Okay, peeps, I'm going out to my apartment pool to get some sun and read. There you go. Wise choice. Well, good, Amy. Yes, I'm Hal Reloaded. Even on a different device, Hal? Yeah, well, that's the thing. I can't check it on the phone, and the other one, everything else is on the same internet. So, yeah, it's weird. Almost. Okay. Let's see. 10 minutes. Okay. They need me to help carry stuff. Okay. So I'm gonna have to go soon because I'm gonna help them set up, because the party's gonna start in a half hour, and I think they need help moving the keg. Because for the grown-ups who are looking forward to this party more than the kids are.
Of course they are.
Yeah. So the amount of barbecuing that is going to be going on in this yard is ridiculous. Cam is doing wonderful. He's having a blast playing with his cousins. He looks forward to hanging out with my cousin David's kids. He gets jump out of his seat excited. It's really sweet to see. It's really a lovely thing. So I appreciate that, Charles. Thank you so much. Rocky Mountain, I take back all those things I said about Tommy Lee Jones, he says. Hal, tell him to get a pack mule. They did. I'm it. That's the that's the thing. Are you eating more of those peanut butter? What are they?
They were pretzel M&Ms, but it's funny you should ask. I'm actually getting hungry and about to go eat something more.
Well, I'll let you go then. I'm going to sign off, guys, right at the half hour. That'll help us out because I got to go help them with the party. You guys are awesome for sticking around. I appreciate it. Thank you guys who are Patreon subscribers. We've grown to 61. I always like, it's funny because I always say that, and then I check after I've left the show, and it'll go up one or whatever. But Lindsay Heimberg is one of our newest, and Michael, thank you so much. And Jude, thanks for signing back on with us. We thought we'd lost you, dear. And Peter, and Tom Hicks, and Daisy Bird. I think, Daisy Bird, I need if you're on or listening today, I need your address on that account so I can send you your patches. All that stuff's going out next week when I get home again. I've basically been on the road for the last 2 weeks back and forth like crazy, so I'll be able to settle in and get everybody their patches and other stuff that's going out. Wink, wink. You guys are everybody at the $10 level is getting a special gift, by the way, coming up. So yeah, hey, we've just been figuring out how to send it out through their system. So there you go. And Norman Fox, thank you. And Jim, thanks again for joining us. Lee Mathis and Tom Baker, those are our newest ones who've joined it. I appreciate you guys so much for doing that. And of course, Can't Stop Lying, thanks for being such a great booster. I really appreciate it. Those of you who watch how Can't Stop Lying, really just does the lion's share, as it were. Hey, see what I did there? Of reminding you guys in ways to support the channel. I super appreciate that more than you can know. And of course, Carl and Julie for weeding out the trolls when necessary. This is, yeah. Oh yeah, Michelle, we're in the same time zone. I gotta say there's something nice about doing this show at noon. It's a lot easier than getting up at 7, and trying to get everything online at 8 after, because watching the news the night before, when you're watching, the especially when it's breaking news on Friday night, and I'm up till, or I've had other stuff to do, and I'm playing catch up in that stuff. Oy. So it's a lot nicer. I sent you a message. Could you check? Oh, on Patreon, Julie, or where? Let me know. I think you may have. Let's see. Because I only have one from Lindsay and Hal Vickery on there that I haven't answered or seen. So let me know. But either way, thank you so much. I think you also can send me one on Twitter if I'm not mistaken, Julie. So although Julie has this weird thing where I can't retweet stuff that she has. She's one of those folks that, yeah. Oh, I see. Yes, I did. I'm just seeing that, Julie. I'll answer that off the air. So yes, there's a possibility. We'll try and make that work. Yeah, let me look into that. So, and thanks, and Johnny just sent me like a bizarre Rex Chapman. What is this? Trump's chicken wings? What is that? Oh, is that from SNL when he was on SNL?
I hope so.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. So, and Ginger, I'm not going to talk about the question you asked me on DM because if I start talking about Endgame, I'll get all weepy. But you guys are awesome. I got to take off. Take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. I will see you next Saturday for sure. I'll be back in Vegas, so we'll have a really strong stream, as my grandfather said. And until then, Johnny Million, thank you for joining us this way. It helped immensely. Awesome. Yeah, saved you a car ride. Yeah, you're leaning back away from your microphone. I can tell.
Sorry. Yeah. Yes, it did.
See, that's much better. Yeah, you need to be up on top of your.
I was standing. I didn't even realize it.
You're right. I'm just walking away.
I'm walking around.
Right. And by the way, folks, I don't know. Did my audio sound okay? I'm using a lavalier mic these days.
It sounded great.
Yeah. So it sounds pretty pro and pretty solid. So that saves me the. This is almost. I think Julie has protected her tweets in some way. Yeah, we got to figure that out. But I'm using a lavalier mic for most of these. Hopefully, moving to the point where. I'll be able to give myself an IFB and we'll have like a full-on show. So I'll be able to hear you guys. And then what? No, that's IBF. IBF. Yeah. And IFB is the thing where the audio sounds a bit more compressed than usual. That's good to know. Okay, that might just be because it's a little hot. Everybody was complaining that it was quiet at first, so I fixed that. I will see what I can do. But anyways, it's improving, and like I said, this is 100% due to our patrons and you guys helping the show. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and thanks to Robert also you know who you are, for your offer of help to the show as well. I'm going to set up like I said, an Amazon wish list if you guys want to help contribute, so that you can go directly to helping, as opposed to if you don't want to deal with Patreon and all that kind of stuff. And so I appreciate you guys. You guys are fantastic. New comedy show coming up. 2 of them in the next couple of weeks, so I'll post all of them. If I'm able to tape some of the stuff from Atlantic City, I will do that too. A lot of my shows these days are almost 100% improv, so it's a bunch of new stuff. So enjoy. It's even new to me. So Johnny, I'm this close to doing dedicating a single year of my stand-up to only doing like an improv show every single time.
Oh wow!
Trying to like start from scratch. It's hard because you get on some themes and you want to talk about them with a new crowd and you want to do that. But I'm this close to doing it because I'm having so much fun doing it. So, it's just, it's all the flapper shows are that way. And the holiday ones that are coming up, Thanksgiving and Christmas especially, are going to be like not just stand-up, but kind of like music and sketches and that kind of extravaganza thing, because we can. So I'm prepping for those things right now, but we will do sketches around them that are based on, just loosely based, nothing scripted, but like Curb Your Enthusiasm scripted. Like we know basically what we want to do and we'll just kind of powwow and go for it. So, yeah. So anyways, you guys take care. I got to go. It's time for the party. Take care of yourselves and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye. See ya later. Cheers. I'm podcast.